How's it going, everyone? Spectre here. This video will serve as an update to my previous video talking about Spranklegate, which really should not be the name of this entire thing, because if we've seen from previous, instances of stuff like this, it tends to blow up in faces. Be that as it may, I really had nothing better to call it, so there you go. Within the last 24 hours since I put the video up, Christine has made her account private. And this is kind of big because I wanted to go through and take some screen caps of her previous tweets, maybe do some archives, and go from there. I no longer can. I've gotten in touch with a couple of people that I have been talking to, including Jeremy, to see if they have the actual tweets themselves screen capped, because I think there was one that will be especially pertinent. And it comes to this. This is a graph of Christine Sprankle's Patreon account over the last 6 months. And as you can see, it's a complete downward trend. There might be a spike here or two, but it's nothing that brings it close to what it had been. And as you can see on 24 November, where she is at her lowest point, 261, 6 months of constant decline. She posts her her tweet saying, "Hey, I'm leaving cosplaying because Jeremy is a kind of asshole," which he is. Don't get me wrong. Jeremy is kind of an asshole, but she never establishes her case that it's been a prolonged harassment coming from him. And as you can see after that, the earnings go up. 316 as of this recording. So she gained almost 60 Patreon supporters from this. Not a lot, but it's noticeable. So what do we have here? We have the possibility of an actual counter from Jeremy, one that he has made. This was not done because of anything he had done. He just provided a scapegoat. She was able to obfuscate what the real reasoning is, and the reasoning is that she has lost money. She has lost Patreon supporters over 6 months. If I bring it out to a 1 year, you can see he peaked pretty much March 9th, and it was just a complete decline. I'd actually like to see what may have piqued the interest at this point, because you can see 73 on February 23rd, and within 10 days she's up to 349. I'd like to actually see if there was something she said at that point. Be that as it may, I can't. So, is it possible that she's taking a page out of the Anita Sarkeesian playbook, which is, if you're losing money, you're losing those dank Patreon bucks, claim victimhood, and, people will flock to you. It's a possibility. It absolutely is a possibility right now. I can't validate it, but I'm willing to, just like I'm willing to entertain the idea that Jeremy may actually be leading a targeted harassment campaign, I'm also willing to hang on to the possibility that she is actually trying to gather money. And as you can see, people are giving her money. Now, what's interesting is there's no actual proof. Nobody's supporting. There's no proof that Christine was taking a lot of flack from Jeremy and his followers. I'm not saying that it didn't happen once again, but Jeremy hasn't been proven to be leading this crusade. If we come over here, though, we can start to see some of the harassment that Jeremy has been getting. John Anderson, I do the same. I don't want your fat, sexist, toxic, disgusting ass at my store either. We have people actually trying to lead campaigns to have him deplatformed, to have his Patreon shut down, have his YouTube accounts shut down with spurious claims. I want to make this very clear to people. I want to make this very clear. You have not actually supported your case that he is leading this toxic attack on Christine. If he loses money over this, the people that he can point to and say, you led the charge, you are opening yourselves up to private civil litigation because he will be able to demonstrate real monetary loss. This is not something to take lightly. It's not. When you decide to take this route to attempt to silence people and you don't actually have the proof to back up what you say, you are opening yourselves up to a massive lawsuit. And guess what? Twitter will provide your information to him on subpoena. Facebook will provide your information to him upon subpoena. They have to. You're not going to have any defense. You might be able to say the truth is a defense. Well, you need to prove that it's the truth. You need to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt that the preponderance of the evidence itself will show that he was personally ordering people to attack not just Christine, but the professor, Marrow, etc. And you haven't yet. All you've shown is that he's an asshole. Okay? There's no denying that he is an edgelord and an asshole at times. That doesn't establish your case. And the truth of the matter is that those of you actually saying, go after his Patreon account, posting actual threads saying this is how to do it, you're going against Patreon's terms of service, which means when he reports you for violating the terms of service, you will not have a defense when they come back and they shut down your Patreon. You will not have a case. That's how it is. Now, some of you might say, well, what happened to the Sargon and Anita thing? Patreon came back and said that he didn't violate their terms of service. You're absolutely right. He didn't violate their terms of service. However, anybody caught leading a false flag operation like this is violating their EULA and TOS. Hands down. So if you're going to go after him like this, make sure your goddamn ducks are in a row because you have a lot more to lose from this than he does. Finally, I posted once more on MTG Salvation. Very quickly, I got a public mod note. At this point, you're being intentionally obstinate. That is an infraction, but I said I would accept the infraction. To quote my post. So I'm going to willingly take another infraction to make my point and my case here because it has to be made. Coming into any discussion, if you set the rules, this happened, don't deny it, but refuse to provide the necessary proof that this has happened, then it's not a discussion at all. It's an echo chamber. I was told to watch the professor's video, so I did. It doesn't answer my question. My question was very, very simple. Where is the proof? The claim is made that Jeremy personally led a targeted, prolonged campaign of harassment against Christine. I decided to do a bit of digging, and aside from a handful of tweets spread over months, which give his opinion that I could understand in the context he provided, mainly that socially awkward people will flock to protect someone who is moderately attractive, and a single video in one stream in which she was mentioned, I cannot find it. I simply can't. I cannot seem to find this much vaunted evidence that everyone says exists. Or doesn't exist, because it was apparently deleted? Why is it that people in this day and age can master the art of social media, but don't understand screen caps and archive.is? Why is it that we have to listen and believe when this comes up, but when pushed for the evidence to support the claim that people are asking for, the evidence, But when pushed for the evidence to support the claim, the people asking for the evidence are suddenly the bad guys. I come from a trust but verify mindset in everything I do because sometimes people lie and other times people pass on what is going on, which is hearsay. The professor makes a good case for Jeremy being an edgelord and an ass. Guess what? That's not proof of him leading a crusade. In my postings on Reddit, my blog postings, and videos on my YouTube channel, I've gone after Studio Wildcard for performing shoddily and providing a subpar product despite the hype they provided. Sid Alpha has gone after Alex Maurer and Andrew Watt recently in the wake of spurious claims. We have been more focused on our respective targets than he has on Christine, and yet it wouldn't be harassment, meaning on our part. More to the point, if Jeremy is held accountable for people doing their own thing and attacking people when he did not instigate any attacks, making a video does not indicate responsibility for creating a hate mob. Does this mean that if he provides actual evidence of targeted harassment against himself by followers of Fournier, Christine, and even the professor, will you then launch a thread like this against them, or will it be a that's completely different? Make no mistake, I do not in any way condone targeted harassment campaigns by anyone. However, you have to provide the evidence to support your accusations, something I don't believe has been done in this. As such, taking a preponderance of the evidence, Jeremy is an asshole sometimes, but that doesn't make him the Hitler of targeted harassment. And for the record, Jeremy makes an interesting case for her having started this because her Patreon numbers were shrinking, related graph provided. I'm not saying it's true, but it's interesting from an evidentiary standpoint. And I support what I wrote. I support it because the proof has not been provided. Nobody has been able to establish the case that he began a targeted harassment campaign. Nobody has, and nobody probably will. Of course, why did they start off with this whole thing in the beginning? Anybody saying that it didn't happen will get a suspension or will garner an infraction. Well, Taya Rabishu posts almost immediately after I did. And here's the reason. Of course, the site is left-wing. As content manager, I can even tell you that there's an explicitly feminist leaning towards front page content. Not that you'd really notice, since we don't really publish anything where that matters. Although I've touched on such issues briefly in how to handle that guy, and Jeremy is that guy ramped up to 11. On top of that, I've personally rejected article submissions that attempt to bring pro-Gamergate comparisons into discussions of social issues within the Magic community. Furthermore, the whole reality has a liberal bias meme does have solid ground because politically, the American right wing has moved so far to the right that discrimination is utterly normalized under their philosophies. Well, Taya, you're wrong. The point of this should be as an impartial mediator, something Taya is completely incapable of doing. Since my first interactions with Taya in 2012, I can tell you right off the bat, Taya's defenses when challenged were always, if you don't agree with me, you're a bigot. This led to my permanent banning in 2013. I was permanently banned initially. Furthermore, there's no really the right wing has moved more to the right than the left wing has moved to the left. Both sides are, for the most part, I would say 80% of people are centrist. They are capable of thinking beyond party lines, so to speak, in the United States. And I believe that's the case in all Western democracies. We are able to look past the Republican or Democrat, liberal or Tory, stuff like that. We're able to engage our brain housing group and think a little bit. Now, that being said, you will always have the vocal minority on both the left and the right. You're always going to have people on the right like Richard Spencer who say some pretty despicable things. You're also going to have people on the left like Antifa who say similarly despicable things. Let them say stupid shit. The best disinfectant for people like this is to let their voices be heard so they can be ostracized. That's how it is. When they start acting on it, when they start actually attacking people, then you get involved and you in defense of yourself or another in the immediate moment, you can defend people. You can engage in violence. This isn't a question of whatever. This is a fact. Taya shows the exact mentality I saw Salvation going down ever since the announcement, really, that Curse was buying out MTG Salvation. I'm not surprised by this. And now Taya tells us exactly why this shit is happening. Because it's a political ideology. truth of the matter is that Jeremy's not a bad guy. An asshole and an edgelord, absolutely, but he's not a bad guy. He's like me. Crass, his humor is dark, but that doesn't make him a bad person. Maybe I'm a little biased on this. To wrap this up, provide the evidence to show Jeremy is the Hitler of targeted harassment. I will gladly join you in denouncing him and taking him to task for it. But until you do, I maintain a trust but verify mindset. And I always will. If you can't do that, if you need to espouse, listen, and believe, then the problem is not on the side of Jeremy and his supporters or the people who are critical because there is no evidence. The problem rests solely on you.